Hi, everyone. This is the second part of the bureaucracy video. And we've looked a little bit about the structure and function of bureaucracies, but there's a lot of criticism of that, right? Here's a political cartoon. We have to respond to the suggestion that the university is overly bureaucratic. I suggest we set up a subcommittee to look into the possibility of thinking about who might join a policy group to draw up a paper with some suggestions as to how we might start thinking about the problem. I mean, this is a lot of the attitude toward bureaucracy that they're inefficient, that you need a committee to start a committee that will start the next committee. And these are valid criticisms. The fact is that there's criticism over how to or suggestions on how to curb waste and how to improve efficiency. And maybe it's inevitable that bureaucracies reflect a changing landscape. Maybe it's inevitable that bureaucracies reflect a growth in population and the economy, but there are always going to be calls for greater efficiency. Now, what do we mean by efficiency? This is often around competence. Um, it's also a competence measured through cost benefit analysis, the optimal allocation of resources to maximize utility. So, how do you produce the best service, the best good with minimal expense? But the problem here, unlike a corporation like Microsoft or Apple or Google or Amazon, is that this is not a for-profit entity. How do we balance this idea of efficient bureaucracy, which we might expect from those corporations, with the fact that we've created a democratic entity here? So, in other words, if we want a public policy on a certain issue, then we demand that, right? We demand that government create a rule or a law that protects clean water. Then government has to figure out a way to do that. If government said to us, no, we're not going to do that, then we can't call ourselves a democracy, right? How do we have a government that's responsive as well as accountable to us and efficient and all of these other things? It's not an easy task, especially in a democratic environment. We aren't a corporation. This is a different environment. We hold our government accountable. So there are a couple of things that could be changed, of course, about bureaucracies. Do we want devolution? Now, devolution is typically a liberal term for returning more power to the states. Conservatives would refer to this as the return to state power, or states' rights. Um, that's taken on some interesting elements today, where not all conservatives, for example, in the COVID-19 crisis, think that the states are doing a good job and want the federal government to do more about it, to have a greater say, which is a little bit of a shift in the ideology. The point being, can states and local governments do things better, more efficiently than the federal government? That's this idea of devolution or states' rights. There's also the idea of helping out whistleblowers. A whistleblower is a person who tells the public or some other entity or authority about alleged dishonest or illegal activities occurring in government or in an agency of government, but people aren't going to report that something's wrong or something's going on that's illegal or unethical if they think they're going to get fired, if they're going to lose their job. So recently, laws have been passed in the Obama administration in particular to protect whistleblowers. That this protection could actually help with creating greater efficiency and accountability. There's also the idea of deregulation, which is reducing government regulations on things like the environment. To that, all of this regulation has increased bureaucratic inefficiency. Is that then we run into the problem of whether our government is accountable to the people in a democratic society. There's also the idea of outsourcing or privatization. Should the government outsource jobs to agencies or companies? Would we be okay with the government outsourcing the military to private entities? That's a tough call because the military is accountable to the government. That is the government. And this idea of using our military in other countries is a big deal. Do we want companies or corporations running soldiers? And where's the accountability there? This also gets to privatization, this idea of perhaps private businesses can do things more efficiently than government and hence take over government tasks. We don't elect people to the private sphere. That private sector has a different MO, modus operandi. They are there for profit. That's just not what government is their role is. So that's it. But maybe there are some things that government can't do efficiently that a private agency could do. What about pay for performance or total quality management? This would be rewarding bureaucrats for performances well done or encouraging efficiency and innovation. So there are a lot of different ways to think about regulating or changing or improving government, but there's also and government bureaucracy, but there's also a lot of pitfalls to that we can't ignore, particularly the context of our democracy. So that's it on this very brief lecture on bureaucracy.